Thinlay and welcome to Tibet This Week, where we bring you weekly news edition on Tibet, His Holiness the Dalai Lama and Central Tibetan Administration. Let's have a look at today's headlines. Personal physicians inform His Holiness the Dalai Lama's rapid recovery post-knee surgery. His Holiness congratulates the new presidents of the European Parliament and the European Commission. Sources report increasing restrictions on Tibetan language in Tibet. Sikyong Penpa joins Canadian Tibetans in celebrating approval of Resolve Tibet Act. Central Tibetan Administration and International Campaign for Tibet hold gratitude event at U.S. Capitol building. Tsering Yangkyi is the new representative of His Holiness the Dalai Lama, Office of Tibet, London. Representative Tsewang Arya attends International Religious Freedom Summit, Asia. Representative Chukki calls on U.S. Ambassador Taylor, thanks U.S. for Resolve Tibet Act. On Wednesday this week, the personal physicians of His Holiness the Dalai Lama, Dr. Tsering and Dr. Tsewang issued an update on the health of His Holiness the Dalai Lama on the website of the Office of His Holiness the Dalai Lama. The physicians mentioned His Holiness the Dalai Lama, who is in the 4th week post-knee surgery, is making a good progress towards recovery and that the doctors are very satisfied with the speed of His Holiness the Dalai Lama's improvement in health. On Monday this week, His Holiness the Dalai Lama has written individually to Ms. Roberta Metsola and Ms. Ursula von der Leyen to congratulate them on being respectively re-elected President of the European Parliament and the President of the European Commission. He expressed to them both his great admiration for the spirit of the European Union that has preserved peace among its members and in the region for more than 6 decades. In the spirit of the reconciliation and cooperation that followed World War II, the European Union has seen the common good as more important than the local interest of the individual countries. This demonstrates, he wrote, a sense of wisdom and maturity in a world that has become increasingly interdependent and challenging. He wished them both every success in ensuring that the European Union remains a strong model for others to follow. The International Campaign for Tibet set a new aspects of the People's Republic of China's efforts to undermine the use of Tibetan and replace it with Mandarin as revealed. According to the reports published by the International Campaign for Tibet, the social media platform in Tibet, including the well-known Douyin, is blocking Tibetan language broadcast and the Chinese authorities are not responding to these objections. Live streaming has become the most popular online retail sales avenue in the People's Republic of China, but Tibetans are facing discrimination from platforms which, like Douyin, due to restrictions to the usage of Tibetan language. The list of these platforms includes major Chinese sites such as Kaosho, Bilibili and TalkMate. The Dharamshala-based Tibetan Center for Human Rights and Democracy also mentions the plight of Tibetan medical practitioners who are unable to use Tibetan on their online consultations. A doctor who was later forced to shut down his online consultation. In 2022, RFA Tibetan reported that multilingual learning app TalkMate and video streaming app Bilibili removed postings in Tibetan from their platforms. TCHRD also reported that Kaosho imposed restrictions in Tibetan. Beyond the restrictions on Tibetan language streaming, Tibetan netizens have noticed restrictions on comments written in Tibetan as well. The International Campaign for Tibet mentioned that one reason for the Chinese government not protecting the rights of the Tibetans to use their own language on such online platform is because their restrictions fulfill the Chinese government's political agenda of undermining the study of Tibetan while making Mandarin the dominating language even among Tibetans. In its 2024 report, Freedom in the World, Freedom House reported the online censorship and monitoring systems in place across China are applied more stringently in Tibet, while censorship in Tibet-related keywords on apps like WeChat has become more sophisticated. Sikyong Penpa, upon completion of his official visit to Ladakh Tibetan settlement, landed in Ontario, Canada. Sikyong graced the celebratory public event organized by the Ontario Tibetan community, a confluence of three significant events: the successful medical treatment of His Holiness the Dalai Lama's knee, enactment of the Resolve Tibet Act in the US, and the recent unanimous passage of the motion supporting Tibet's right to self-determination in the Canadian House of Commons on 20 July at the Kangchong Chendeling. While addressing the gathering, Sikyong outlined the 16 Kashaks' political strategy aimed at advocating and substantiating Tibet's historical independence in order to reinforce the policy of middle way approach, and further spoke about US President's approval of the Resolve Tibet Act and the Canadian House of Commons passage of motion supporting Tibet's right to self-determination. While reaffirming his and his colleagues' steadfast support for Tibet's cause, MP James Maloney briefed the recent passage of a motion supporting Tibet in the Canadian House of Commons and congratulated Tibetans for enactment of the Tibet Bill in the US. On Thursday this week, a reception was organized at the Capital Visitor Center to mark the signing of the Promoting a Resolution to the Tibet-China Dispute Act into law. Sikyong Penpa Tsering, president of the Central Tibetan Administration, expressed the gratitude of the Tibetan people to the sponsors of the bill. The reception was attended by Speaker Emerita Nancy Pelosi, Chairman Michael McCall, Congressman Jim McGovern, and Congressman Joe Wilson. A video with a collection of Tibetan people thanking the United States was also screened at the reception and enjoyed by the attendees. Sikyong visited Washington, D.C. from July 22nd to 25th. In addition to the meeting with the U.S. Congress members, Sikyong had meetings with the State Department and White House officials on Tibet-related issues. Sikyong also participated in a closed-door expert roundtable at Brookings Institution, moderated by its China Center Director Ryan Haas. Other engagements included meetings with USAID officials and congressional staffers. Sikyong also attended the community celebration of the Resolve Tibet Act becoming law at the Capital Area Tibetan Community Center. Sikyong will be visiting Tibetan communities in Madison, Wisconsin, Minnesota, and Chicago during the weekend. In a circular issued on Wednesday this week, the Kashak announced the appointment of Yangkyi as the new representative of His Holiness the Dalai Lama at the Office of Tibet in London. Yangkyi is currently serving as the Secretary of the Election Commission and the Public Service Commission of the Central Tibetan Administration. Her appointment aligns with the Article 19(1) of the Public Service Commission's rules and regulations, which stipulates that the representative of His Holiness the Dalai Lama at the Office of Tibet must be appointed by the Kashak in presence of Sikyong and the Kaluns. Yangkyi has joined as a civil servant in 1995 and has previously served in the Department of Religion and Culture, Department of Finance, Department of Health, Tibetan Institute of Performing Arts, Tibet Policy Institute, Cabinet Secretary, and the Department of Information and International Relations. On Monday this week, International Religious Freedom, based in US, along with some international and regional co-organizers, organized the 2024 International Religious Freedom Summit Asia to discuss and debate religious freedom in Asia in Tokyo. Representative Dr. Tsewang Arya, the liaison officer of His Holiness the Dalai Lama, Tokyo, attended as one of the panelists to address the impact of genocide in the region. Dr. Arya briefed on the situation in Tibet and how the CCP regime continued to destroy Tibetan identity, culture, and religion for more than 70 years. He talked about the destructions of the monastic complexes in Tibet undertaken by the Chinese authorities and the Chinese government's interference in Tibetan religious matters, especially in the selection of the reincarnation of His Holiness the Dalai Lama.
Another thing is that the US legislation that recently passed, which is Tibet Resolve Act, in which it has clearly said that China's claim that Tibet is a part of China since ancient time is inaccurate and wrong. And China's continued interference in the Tibetan selection of religious leader is not good. So this kind of legislation should come from many of our other democratic countries also.
Former Ambassador at Large for the International Religious Freedom, Sam Brownback, and former Chair of the United States Commission on the International Religious Freedom, Katharina Lantos-Sweat, presided over the one-day event. Tibet House Japan and Asia Democracy Movement organized a talk and press conference by Tibetan educational sociologist Dr. Gyalpo and his team comprising Dorji Siden, Tibetan parliamentarian and Asia Program Manager at Tibet Action Institute, and Tenzin Minlek and Tsering Dorji of the Student for Free Tibet at Bunkyokyu Civic Center in Tokyo on 20th July. Representative of the Liaison Office of His Holiness the Dalai Lama for Japan and East Asia, Dr. Tsewang Arya, spoke on the importance of the U.S. Resolve Tibet Act and distributed a Japanese translation of the law S-138 to the audience. Dr. Gyalpo, educational sociologist and a leading expert on China's assimilative education policies in Tibet, made a presentation on China's colonial boarding schools in Tibet and how it started and evolved in 3 stages. Dr. Gyalpo and the team delivered talks and presentations at Meiji and Waseda universities. They met Shimomura Haguban, chairman of the Japan Parliamentary Support Group for Tibet, where Dr. Gyalpo informed the critical nature of the situation in Tibet and sought the lawmakers' support. Dr. Gyalpo will speak at Tokyo University and some other places in the coming weeks. On Wednesday this week, Representative Chukki called on Her Excellency Michelle Taylor, the United States Ambassador to the United Nations Human Rights Council, to convey gratitude of the Tibetans for the enactment of the Resolve Tibet Act and also to brief the ambassador about the ongoing human rights situation inside Tibet. That is all the news for this week's edition of Tibet This Week. Thank you so much for watching.